interested in mankind, if you're interested in society and how it should function, then you would do well to study the past.
There's certain moments in history where the human spirit just kind of bubbles up and goes.
Whether we're talking about democracy, art, philosophy, it doesn't really matter what the subject is. It begins in Greece.
The school acts as a gateway to not just a different place, but sometimes a different time.
We bring Greece's past to life to really help shape the world's tomorrow. Preserving, protecting, promoting all aspects of Hellenism from ancient times till today. And we've been doing it for 135 years.
There were educated businessmen, lawyers, financiers who truly believed that the study of the Greek past was of a great good for the general public and that it needed to be advanced. We exist by virtue of the philanthropic efforts of individuals like them. We had pioneer women archaeologists leading research teams in Greece. We are international, multicultural, and intercontinental in terms of the networks of collaborations that are carried out.
We're a consortium of almost 200 leading academic institutions in the United States, all of whom support the school.
We draw from that membership, whether in Texas or Hawaii or Massachusetts or Florida, to bring people here.
In a place that has 3 world-class libraries within 100 meters. When you're in Athens, it feels like the center of the universe.
I would rather do this here at Athens than anywhere else because the major monuments are here and it's very inspiring.
You feel what a contemporary Greek would have felt standing on the Acropolis with the Parthenon right next to you.
What you're doing is creating the next generation. They're all going to be high school teachers, they're going to be professors, they're going to be scholars, and they are the ones who are going to pass on our understanding of antiquity. We have the pieces that were necessary for the working of the democracy, and those are the people of Athens speaking to you directly over thousands of years.
We have about 1.5 million items digitized.
All of that information can really be disseminated to new audiences, to the global classroom.
The American School gives you a place where you can kind of explore your own passions in a way. You have people who are so passionate about the material, they create tools to study it. When you see what can be done at a single site, then you realize, well, why can't we do this across all of Greece? And have all of Greece accessible in that way.
There's hardly a part of Greece that some American school project is not operated in.
We've got 300,000 catalogued objects to educate our students, but also for research so that we can come up with better interpretations. We're also developing ways to present this all to the public. So we're creating a management plan to create an archaeological and ecological part and educational programs for children in the States, which we translate into Greek so that students in Greece can also use those same materials.
The collection is about the history of Greek genius through the ages. It is very important to find ways in which to attract people, to make them understand that there is value in the old books and secrets that are hidden in there.
Our mission is essentially a rescue mission. We're creating time capsules for future generations.
It is important to be able to share this through exhibitions, scholarly presentations.
We carry out many synergasias, collaborative projects with archaeologists and the different inspectorates of the Ministry of Culture. We conduct research together and publish together.
We're at a moment of revolutionary change in archaeological science.
Using sophisticated techniques, we dig deep into the past.
We can now tell not only what a person had in his last meal, but where he lived.
I guess I've always been pretty interested in different things, but the school gives you the opportunity to really explore all of those things. You come over as an American and you leave feeling much more like a Greek. you really do get a second home. So, δεύτερο σπίτι.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. If you have a free hand, let's give a round of applause to our team and colleagues. We're really excited to have you with us. We want to get right to our conversation, and we hope that you'll be part of this dialogue. I want to welcome to the podium Dr. Maria Yorgopoulou, the director of the Gennadios Library, and we thank her for joining us. We'll put Andreas Zobanakis in the middle, the chair of the Board of Overseers and trustee of the American School. And also Eleftheria Delezio, the one of the archivists from the American School. So before we kind of begin, why don't we just give a sort of a brief introduction. Where'd you go to school? How'd you come to the American School? Get a little bit about yourself.
So it's wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm originally from Athens, where I went to university to become an archaeologist, and then I saw the light and I became a Byzantinist, and I studied in France and at UCLA, and then I taught in a school not very far from here in New Haven until 2004. I taught art history at Yale. And then I returned to Athens to become the director of the GreekNewsTV Library 20 years ago. So it's a wonderful institution, and you will know much more about it by the end of tonight. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Maria. We'll jump over to Eleftheria. Give us a little introduction, please.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for hosting this exhibition. I'm Eleftheria Delezio. I'm an archivist, a historian. I have a PhD in modern Greek history from the University of Glasgow, from the United Kingdom, and I started working at the Archives of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens back in 2008.
Wow. What? No, they want it a little higher for the photo. They're doing that. And Andreas, please. Zobanakis, not an employee of the school, a trustee of the school. But lift it up.
Hello.
There we go.
Hi. So I'm Andreas Zambanakis.
A little up here.
Yes, I'm Andreas Zambanakis. I live in Athens, very close to the school, luckily. I have an undergraduate degree in archaeology, and I was a student at the school half a century ago. And then I went to School of Fine Arts and became an investment banker, which is all very logical. I was invited to join the board, I suppose 7, 8 years ago, and I became chairman of the library. The Gennadios Library belongs to the American School of Classical Studies, and I'm also trustee of the school. And thank you very much for hosting us.
Another note, just I know a lot of you, and some of you are involved with the Philoptochos, which is a wonderful organization. I'm honored because Andreas extends his philanthropy, generosity, and leadership to us, but also to a wonderful home called Chara. Talk about that for 1 second.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you, George.
No, you should. Why not?
But
talk about who you are.
It's for years now. I've chaired a home, a residential home outside Athens for severely disabled kids, half of whom are on the spectrum, autism spectrum. And anyway, George brings it up every time.
I love it because I think it's who you are, and he's also an archon of the ecumenical patriarchy. And so it's very close connections to many of you in the room. So let's get into our Asia Minor story, shall we? I start with Andreas. We had this exhibit in the name of humanity. It started at the Makrianis wing at the American School. It was born there. And the Board of Overseers of the Gennadios Library said, we have to take it beyond the boundaries of Suevia Street in Kolonaki, where our main campus is. And they said we have to take it on the road. So we envisioned how, where, what do we do? And we came up with this concept, right, of traveling the exhibit in a way that you can take it to places for an extended period of time, but in unique places. And we needed a pilot program, and we found it here. But the initial push, Andreas, we have this exhibition, and you were a big proponent of it. Tell us why. How did it go from idea to reality?
So we had a slew of very important anniversaries in the last few years. to celebrate. So we had, in 2021, we had the bicentennial of the Greek Revolution. And in 22, we had 100 years since the Megali Catastrophe, the Smyrna, and the end of the Megali Dea, basically. And then in 23, we had the Treaty of Lausanne and the exchange of populations. So these were all events that were celebrated throughout Greece, but we felt we needed to find something that connected America and the fact that we were an American school. And in sort of thinking about this, what are you looking for? Where is it?
Slides are there. I got the posters. Go.
Yeah. I started reading about the exchange of populations, and I saw these posters. And it said, "They shall not perish." And I thought, what is this? And I started reading about it. And slowly it was like peeling of an onion. It was this incredible story of American philanthropy towards these refugees that had all but been forgotten, completely forgotten. So we persuaded everyone we should do this as a school. And I think what you'll hear, the story tonight, it was a great decision because it's a story that's all been forgotten. It's a moment of enormous altruism, and it's a story that needed to be told, and it's being told now beyond the school. And yeah, so that's where this all originates from.
And these posters are magnificent. You can see some of them, they're on the displays. Let's get into the story at FTV a little bit. Can you set the stage for all of us? Who was involved and what is the situation in Greece at the time? Let's get some perspective here, please.
I guess we should start from the First World War. It started in 1914, but in 1915 we had the Armenian deportations. We had people who were persecuted in the Ottoman Empire. The American public was informed about it through Henry Morgenthau, who was the American minister in Constantinople at that time. And he actually was the man who initiated many relief efforts during this period. And then we come to Greece. The end of the First World War, 1918, the American Red Cross comes to help. And many American relief organizations come to the Near East after the end of the First World War. Fast forward to 1922, August 1922. The Greek army is being defeated in Asia Minor, and thousands of Anatolian Greeks come to Smyrna. They have to find a way to leave the city. The city is on fire, the Turks are in the city, and there come the American relief organizations. They are stationed either in Constantinople or in Smyrna, and they come to help the thousands of refugees in Smyrna. And they also help them to flee the area. And, you know, there are people who help them, and there are Americans of other nationalities as well, but there are two people that have to be mentioned. It's Asa Jennings, it's the YMCA secretary in Smyrna, and it's George Horton, who was the American consul in Smyrna right before the catastrophe. These two people helped Anatolian Greeks to flee Smyrna, which was on fire.
Right. It's a remarkable story. I've read about them quite a bit, but Maria, you know, one of the things that sticks out to me is when the refugees came in, what was the population of Greece at that time? Oh, go ahead.
Greece had a population of a little bit less than 5 million, and the refugees were 1.2 million who came to Greece. So the numbers are staggering, and obviously Greece is a country that has been at war for more than 10 years, from the Balkan Wars, then the end of World War I, and the Asia Minor campaign. So people are depressed, have no money, and then you have the refugees come. which means that
it was very difficult. How do you receive them if your infrastructure can't handle it, right? And
you need help,
what are the
and
implications of that?
you need a lot of help, and you need lands. You need really to take care of people who are destitute. So the help of many American organizations and anybody else who would help was extremely important.
I'm going to go back to Asa Jennings for some. We have some special people in the audience tonight. Mike, are you here? DIMITRIOS, there he is. Mike did a film on Asia Minor in Smyrna. He actually interviewed, right? You interviewed Roger. Right here, come and just say a couple words, what your experience was like with that.
Sure. In 2019, I had the chance to go up to Lake George and interview the grandson of Asa Jennings, Roger Jennings opened up his house to us, and we spent the afternoon with him. It took about 4 hours, and we had some incredible archives from his grandfather and told an incredible story. You can catch it online. It's on YouTube, Smyrna-1922.com. So it's free to watch. And I initially was introduced to the story of Smyrna. I read an incredible book by Dr. Nikki Caravallis called The Whispering Voices of Smyrna. And that's kind of led me pretty much to putting the documentary together.
What is his memories about his grandfather?
Grandfather.
What is his memories about? He knows the full story.
He knows the full story. His grandmother actually had a breakdown. Some of the murders she saw, the travesty that happened in the ensuing fire that ripped the city apart. People were jumping, either be killed by the Turkish soldiers, or actually the irregulars, not even the Turkish soldiers, but irregulars are called Chets. And they'd either be killed by the Chets or jump into the water and drown. And a lot of them chose to jump in the water and be drowned.
Thank you. You should all watch that. That's an interesting piece. But thank you, Mike. Round of applause. Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate that. We have some other special guests as well. Andreas, you're a numbers guy. That's kind of like puts in perspective for everybody kind of what was happening there. And I think in the trailer you talk about just what type of impact it had on the people of Greece. The fact that I want you to finish that 30 million, that it was raised, and who raised that money? We're talking Greek Americans, or what are we talking about, and who did this? We can talk about that.
Before I get to that, two quick asides, because I think they're important. The first thing is that the official American policy was not to interfere, not to, the orders were given to not pick up any refugees. So these people, including the ship's captain, took it on their own head to save these people. The other thing that's kind of an interesting aside is Henry Morgenthau, who is the father of Morgenthau of the New Deal, and the grandfather of Morgenthau, the Attorney General. So it's a kind of interesting family history. Anyway, the 30 million. So these posters talk about,
Back to the posters.
here we go. Yeah, because the posters talk about this appeal that I think we'll get into more detail. But so $30 million was raised in the space of a few months, and that's $1923, which is about, more or less, depending how you calculate it, $750 million in today's money. So still, as I understand it, it's the biggest humanitarian relief fundraising in American history. It's never been surpassed. And it wasn't government money. It wasn't a few billionaires. It was Christians and Protestants mainly in the churches of America. So, but I think we're going to get into this a bit more later.
And by the way, wasn't it 30 million in 2 months raised?
Yes, in the space.
So 30 million in 2 months raised. So talk about the reaction, the marketing and stuff. Okay, American Red. We're going to go to the Red Cross. Okay, let's focus a bit and talk about the American Red Cross and its connection to the American School of Classical Studies in Athens.
1918, the end of the Great War. The American Red Cross comes to Greece after the appeal of help of the Greek Red Cross. They come with medical supplies, they come with nurses, they come with doctors, they come to help the people. And they do it, and they do it wonderfully up in Macedonia, where they help to save refugees people who were captive in Bulgaria during the war. They fight typhus, they fight malaria, they establish health clinics. But who are these people? Well, the president of the American Red Cross in Greece was Edward Capps. Edward Capps, a very well-known classicist, a professor in Princeton, was also the chairman of the managing committee of the American School of Classical Studies in Athens. As you can understand, the school was really close to the work of the American Red Cross. And it was not just him. The director and the secretary of the American School of Classical Studies, Berthold Hill and Carl Blegen, two very well-known archaeologists who knew the land, who knew the people, who knew the language, were able to help the American Red Cross to do its work. And they do it, and they do it brilliantly.
Now, the American Red Cross, wasn't that, they were urgent, weren't they, Marie? You were telling me that they were urgent relief, so they weren't long-term relief.
The American Red Cross is, they come in, they give help, they give what they can to the country, and then they go. It's actually a very interesting story that when the refugees arrive in Greece, the American Red Cross really spends a lot of money. They come to Greece, they bring foodstuffs and everything, and nurses, and so on and so forth. But by July 1923, they're gone. They're given medals by the Greek state. They've really done a lot. But they feel that there's a committee that is established, a commission for the establishment and the well-being of the refugees, which is headed by Morgenthau, and the American Red Cross leaves. So this is the moment where people related with the American school and Americans who have been in Greece for a while realize that they have to take things in their own hands. So they create their own committees, they do fundraising, they try to do fundraising, I think, at least in America. And this is the moment, too, where other organizations that Eleftheria will talk about more are really take the lead. And these are the Near East Relief, the American Women's Hospital.
Right, so let's go into the hospitals. So you have this increase in population, you have increase in disease, hunger, and base necessities. How did we respond to that, Claude? You want to talk about the hospitals and that situation?
Yeah, it's American relief organizations which come to Greece to help. One of them, the American Women's Hospitals, is a story of success. It was an all-women's organization, doctors and nurses, who understand that they are needed in Greece right after the Asia Minor catastrophe. They also helped refugees in Smyrna in September 1922. So they arrived in Greece with nurses and, of course, doctors. And one of their major successes is the creation of a quarantine station on an island off the coast of Attica. Maybe you have heard about it, Makronissos, a deserted island, an island with no running water, with no buildings. There they establish a quarantine station and they treat almost 12,000 people who had contagious diseases like typhus, malaria, and because they were not healthy, they were not allowed to land. So these women there treat these people in tents because there were no buildings, there was no running water, and they make them healthy again.
So we're going to pause for one quick moment. We have another special guest in the audience. And I don't know if this is the right time, but I think it might be, just to give us a break. Armin, what was the last name again? Marsuk is a historian, and you know, this Asia Minor story isn't just about Greeks, right? Or Ottoman Greeks, whatever you want to talk about. The Armenians also play a significant role. And you know, we're very gracious that he has contributed to this exhibition as well. And he has a robust archive and photo archive of that experience. Could you say a couple words, perhaps, about maybe what was different in the Armenians in Greece versus the Armenian refugees in other areas, or what that was about?
Yes. I was privileged to inherit from my uncle and from my mother a photographic collection of over 3,000 photographs, probably 1,000 from prior to 1922, when my family, along with the Greeks in Anatolia, were forced out. Besides the photographic record, and I've shared some of the photos here, I was also given material about Near East relief, because my great uncle was the director of the Armenian orphanage in Samsun that was run by Near East Relief. And Near East Relief ran a Greek orphanage in Samsun and also a Turkish orphanage in Samsun. And when you were mentioning the figures, Near East Relief started their work in 1915 at the beginning of the Armenian genocide, but by the time they finished in 1930, well past when the American Red Cross left, they had raised in dollars, in 1920 dollars, $100 million in relief, which I don't know what the figure would be in current dollars. And my family was on the same ship with the Greek orphans and the Armenian orphans, leaving Samsun Harbor, and they arrived in Piraeus along with other Greek and Armenian refugees, and they were kept on a quarantine island. Actually, they were actually kept longer than the Greek orphans for some reason, but they wound up in the two communities you saw where the hospitals were. One was Kokinia, one was Durguti. Those were two areas where many of the Pontian Greeks and the Armenians settled in Greece, and there's still an Armenian community there that I visit and that I've had exhibitions of the photography. And I've written all about this period and their experience in Anatolia, and then I'm currently writing additional chapters about their experience resettling in Greece and starting their lives over. And then, of course, the diaspora, which brought me, my mother here to New York, and eventually I am so privileged to have all this material to work with, both the personal material that I've been inherited, but other material that I've been given by many people over the years who want to tell this important story.
Thank you, Armin. Let's hear it. I'm really honored. We had a busy day, and I was happy he was able to be with us. Go ahead, say something.
I really want to thank you, because I chased you down when I saw the beautiful exhibition of the family archive, the Dildilian photographers up in Thessaloniki, and then I knew, so thank you very much for coming into our project, and we hope that we will find ways to really expand this relationship.
And we actually think the Armenian story is very powerful. We're taking this to LA, and there's a huge Armenian population there that's taken interest in helping bring it there. So it's really important for us. You know, that 30 million, by the way, and the 100 million we just heard, remember when we had the gala week and we spoke, it was the event, and someone got up and said that what was the budget of the military, to put it in perspective. Do you remember that? Do you remember? No. Maria, do you remember? He said something that the military budget was $3 million at the time, and it was a $30 million raise, to put it in perspective. I believe, I don't know, Nancy recalls the figures. But it was just mind-boggling to see the outpouring of philanthropy, you know, versus what what the country was spending on defense at that time. We're going to go a little further. This was the Edward Capps picture. I'm just going to bring that down. That was a member of the American school that came and helped and supported it. But I just wanted to highlight something that I'm very proud of the school, is that the school continually doesn't just look as guests coming in to do the archaeology and all the cool stuff. They've stopped what they do throughout its entire history for 140 years to help people. This is most recently in Syria. Our students stopped everything to help the refugees. And we're just really, I think that's really important. Let's go to the Near East industries now. So we just heard a little bit about it. Maria, now you have these refugees, they need to earn a living. How do you do that?
Of course, it's very important to be able to give work to people, because no matter how many subventions you give, it's never enough. And in the case of any war, but in the case of refugees, it's important to find ways to empower the women. These are the caregivers. They have to take care of the kids, and very often they have to really support their husbands as well. So one of the ways in which one of the committees that was related to the American school helped was to create workshops for embroidery workshops that would employ women. And women were given singer machines, sewing machines, and they could work at home. And of course this helped, because if they had babies, they could really produce things. And then there were shops where these embroideries were being sold, and then they created purses, and some of the material was also being made in the orphanages in Syros, where the Near East Relief was very instrumental in helping. And eventually, one of the products that really became the most well-known of these Near East industries were these dolls. So these were dolls that are that tall, and they come. They're sort of they come from all parts of the Near East. They're dolls from the island of Skiros, like the one that Eleftheria will show you in a moment, from sort of different islands, from Attica, but there are also Muslim women, Ismet, and I forget what the girl's name is, but also Odysseus and Penelope, and so on and so forth. So these dolls were actually one of the reasons why this exhibition was, we couldn't have it at the American school. And it is because they were collected by one of our former directors, a very important and famous archaeologist, Jack Davis, who started collecting those when he realized that they were related with the American school on eBay. Now they were much cheaper when Jack started collecting. Now they're a little bit more expensive, but you can still buy them. And it's a wonderful story and how these dolls were actually made in Greece, sold in Greece, sold on ships that went back to the US, and eventually made it to the US, where they were sold in sort of wealthy women's homes, like Tupperware parties. I guess they were selling these dolls and embroideries.
Great. Hand in glove with the relief humanitarian work is American business deals. So I don't know which one of you wants to talk about it. I think Andreas might take it. Let's talk about the work done at the Marathon Dam and the reclamation of the Strimlin and Drama valleys, and the importance of what was done there, and the impact on the refugees and on Greece up until today.
Well, I don't want you to misunderstand the way it's presented. You know, this wasn't a quid pro quo. We'll give you aid, and you give us business. What happened? Right. Yeah. So, 1923, infrastructure in Greece was minimal. So Athens had no sources of clean drinking water. So Ullin, an American engineering company.
Hold it close.
Yeah, an American engineering company built the Marathon Dam, which is to this day Athens' source of clean water. It's an incredible, is there a picture of it? It's all built in white marble, which must be the only dam in the world that's built in. And there's a temple to...
The treasury of the Athenians from Delphi, which is at the bottom of the dam, which is quite extraordinary.
There you go. It's a very picturesque dam. Anyway, so that was one. And for the bankers among you, you know, we have, for some reason, the loan agreement that sets out all the terminology of modern finance, how this thing was paid for. The other is the Strymon Valley, the swamps that were drained. Malaria was a big issue in Greece in lots of places. So the draining of the swamps released a lot of farmland. Now, and this is an important issue, but so Greece, through diplomacy, basically in war, had expanded enormously towards the north and very quickly. And these areas were not populated with a lot of Greeks. So the exchange of populations met a need, which is to populate these parts of newly formed Greece. So there was a lot of farmland was created as a consequence of all this. And the other thing, which is not directly for George, I don't know if we get into it, but there was a lot of hostility towards these refugees. A lot of them didn't speak Greek. The local populations resented them because there was distributions of farmland given to them, and there was some resentment over it. And if you talk to some of these communities today, they'll tell you that they basically settled in villages where they were all refugees. But then these, you know, these refugees became the backbone of Greek industrial society. They built the factories and they were merchants. And so Greece gained a lot from the influx of these refugees.
So, first of all, as we're proceeding now, we're talking about the impact on the refugees, the business. Let's talk about education. Actually, there was one other thing. Maria, what else did they build? We forgot about that.
Well, because you have to, πρέπει να πενέσεις στο σπίτι σου, you have to speak well about your home. So one of the very big projects that was funded and started by Americans at this time was the establishment, the foundation of the GreekNewTV Library, which is the library that I'm director of, and it was a new library that was built in 1922 to house the private collection of Ioannis Giannadios, a book collection of about 30,000 books about the history of Greece after the end of antiquity. What we wanted to say about this, as was the case also with the Marathon Dam and with the dredging of the swamps up in Macedonia, is that in all of these very important works, and the Giannadios Library was built with money from the Carnegie Corporation, it was the people who worked with Greeks, and most of the times were refugees. This is a beautiful, for me at least, a photograph that shows the Thanksgiving dinner that was offered to the people, the workmen who were building the GreekNewTV Library in Athens in November 1923. And we know that the American school paid $60 to feed, $23 to feed 60 or 70 people. And of course the refugees were really very grateful for this, because it was a good meal, but also because they knew that the winter ahead of them was going to be much better than the winter that they had just suffered.
Thank you, Maria. I think that's why it's so close to our home. We're going to rip through the next questions because I want to ask the audience to really have an opportunity to speak. Let's talk about education now. These are important. All of these can take a long time, and the schools that were founded, operated in the Ottoman Empire, and then came over. Let's talk a little bit about that, Maria.
Yes, the schools are extremely important, and we really talk about 3 schools that are still in existence in Greece. They're among the best private schools that we have in Greece. The Farm School up in Thessaloniki.
The American Junior College starts with, right?
Okay, the American Junior College of Girls, which was a school for girls founded by missionaries in 1875, and which moved to Greece in 1922. It's still one of the most important girls' schools in Greece. The American Farm School that was founded in 1904 in Thessaloniki to educate young men in farming and bring in new methods of farming, and they're very proud to show off the first tractor that came to Greece and so on and so forth. And a third school, which is Anatolia College in Thessaloniki, a school that is one of the best schools in the country. And here we see proudly the first director of the school, White, who, when they bought a new plot in the area where they still are. Now, these schools, as I said, were private schools. There were schools that, when they functioned in the Ottoman Empire, they were missionary schools, and a lot of what they were doing was to educate kids in a Protestant sort of way of life. But in Greece, the Orthodox Church didn't want to have anything to do with that and proselytizing. And it was Venizelos, Prime Minister Venizelos at the time, who really wanted to bring these schools to Greece in order to change the educational system, in order to bring this liberal arts education in Greece. And this is what these educational institutions have done in the last 100 years.
No, thank you. In the exhibition, you talked constantly about Ottoman Greeks. Who were they, and is there a difference between them and the Greek Americans that were here? Did they get along? Were they accepted? Anyone want to add anything to that?
Well, Ottoman Greeks is a very interesting term, and of course it's a term that, at least when we had the exhibition in Greece, it really shocked people. But these are the refugees from Asia Minor who actually left of the Ottoman Empire and came directly to the United States. And when they arrived on Ellis Island, most of the times, this is what they're accounted as. They were Ottoman subjects, so they're Ottomans, and then they're Greeks, and they're Christians. So these are people who arrive in this country from 1915 onwards until 1924, because in 1924 there is a change in legislation, there is a quota about immigration. But these are people who arrive in the US, they create their own communities, and of course they try to stick together in order to make a living and all of that. What our colleague Yorgos Topalidis, who worked on this section of the exhibition, has discovered in his work is that they didn't see eye to eye with the Greek Americans. That they would have their own churches, they would have their own associations, and it took a while before the two communities came together, if they did.
If they did, yeah. No, right.
But it's something that Andreas mentioned. This rift, that the refugees, yes, they are of the same ethnicity, they are of the same religion, but because they speak a different idiom, because they eat differently, somehow they don't sound and look like you.
No, you're right. I have two last questions, so we're coming to a close. And the first, the one, and this is actually kind of cool. So you speak about music in the exhibit. I don't know if you saw it, if you actually watched it. It's pretty incredible, and I love this part. Talk a little bit about the influence that the Asian minor refugees had on the growth of the recording industry. Anyone who wants to take it, go for it, Andrea.
We, in the last few years, have worked a lot with this American from West Virginia, bizarrely, called Christopher King, that's written a book, which I'd recommend to all of you, called The Lament for Dimitrios. Lament
Andreas, microphone up here.
Lament from Epirus. It's about the Myrologia of Epirus. Read it, it's fantastic. Anyway, so he's been doing a lot of research. He has a big collection of 78s dating back as far as 1908. So in his research, he discovered that in the decade of the 20s, 16% of all records sold in America were Greek, which is disanalogous with the size of the population. The other thing he discovers is that the record industry that had the commercialization of this music, they had tried to produce generic Greek music, which fell on its face because everyone wanted the music from their own particular parts of Greece. The Cretans want Cretan music and all the rest of it. So, and of course, what George is always alluding to is Revekka, which, you know, have their origin in the etched of Asia Minor. But we very much want to do an exhibition about this at some point because it's a very interesting part of our history, added to which Kyria Kula, there she is, had one of the most successful record companies in New York. She was a woman, and there you have the imprint from one of her records.
So we're going to end with one last question, but I want to tell you, for all of you that live in these parts, it was the first time driving over the, what is it, Mario Cuomo Bridge now, is that what it's called? That I ever had someone in my car scream and yell when she saw Sleepy Hollow, right? Why did you scream and yell like a little, in the back?
We mentioned the Near East Relief, one of the important American relief organizations which helped Greece and the refugees. Well, the records are there at Sleepy Hollow, so that's why I was so enthusiastic about it. The other thing is that I think we should mention that the Near East Relief helped 18,500 orphans, Armenian and Greek orphans. They were in the Ottoman Empire, but after the Asia Minor disaster, they had to flee the area. They were sent to Greece, and the Near East Relief organized orphanages. One of those orphanages was on the island of Syros. It housed almost 7,000 children there, Armenian and Greeks. And we have the pleasure tonight to have for you to see on display parts of the outfits of the orphans on the island of Syros, and it shows. They show how much, how they cared, how the organization cared for these orphans. 18,500 Armenian and Greek orphans.
And they educated them all?
They had workshops. They had they were trying to equip them for a better life. They were studying to become carpenters, to become nurses. The girls. They wanted these orphans to have a life, to be self-sustained.
Right. Well, we have one last question. That I'm going to ask you before I do. I'm going to take 1 minute. So tonight we do have exhibition catalogs. They're outside on the way out if you'd like to get one. The way we're doing it in your programs tonight, you'll see this We Uncover It All. There's a QR code there. The cost for the book is $35. That's what it cost the American School. But we are a 501c3, so any gift above $35, you can take a book. And you're going to get a... I hope the exhibit and the experience and the evening tonight inspired you. But you make the contribution when you go out, just, honor system or show them, and they'll hand you a book there as well. And also, we are looking to take this nationally. That's another thing, too. We think it's very important. What got us here today, to be honest with you, was the generosity of the overseers and the trustees of the American School. I want to acknowledge Andrew Georges, who's standing in the back. He's a Greenwich boy. He's a trustee of the American School. Wonderful gentleman. And we're just honored, but we are looking to create a national sponsorship program so that basically the sponsors are able to choose where they want to bring the exhibit. And we're looking to have one on the East Coast and West Coast. And what's exciting is the school has over, I think, done 12 to 13 exhibits such far. So those are fabrics that can come down. So we can easily switch them around and give you a potpourri of different, exhibits at some point. Now, so that's the point. If you want to do an exhibition card, we hope you will, do that. And on the way out, you can get that. Also, Kathy Stanton, who was amazing job in the team here, put together a feedback. This is our pilot night. We want to hear what you thought about the experience. So you get these things on the way out. Please take time to do that. And the final question, which I'm going to also answer, is okay, there's so much to say, we could spend 5 lectures. So what's the one thing that touched you the most in the exhibit? And I'm going to say one too, because I didn't hear it yet. Can I go? I'm going to go first. I'm going to go first. I think this is spectacular. So I'm going to jump ahead on this. Yeah, I'm going. Hold on. It better be here. These are some of the exhibits. Wait. Final thoughts. So, oh no. There it is. Wait. Come on. It's my mouth. Okay. Go through yours and I'm going to get to my
While
slide.
you struggle through this, what was yours?
I got it. Here it is. The reason why. So those are my grandparents. Some of you, my mom, that's her. That's her before leaving. Smear. Go ahead. I'll come back.
Okay, so what was yours?
Live microphone.
Well, I think that the items that I love more are the ones which come from the orphanage. The parts of the outfits of the orphans on the island of Syros.
Yeah, but tell them quickly.
The story. Well, the buildings of this orphanage are still there. They were used after 1929 as a military camp. Now they are back to, they're not a military base anymore. But these items were found under the wooden floors of a building there. It was, it was a discovery. It was an accidental discovery. But once you have them in your hands, you can reconstruct the stories happening in these buildings. That's why I love them.
And it's very moving. It's very moving because these children had so little that they buried their little dolls.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's very moving. So, I don't have one. I have 2.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm coming back to me because I
it's
got
Maria's turn.
No,
so Morgenthau is sent back to Athens by Woodrow Wilson, and he writes a book that's published in 1929 that's entitled "I Was Sent to Athens," and in it he describes what we see in every refugee community, which was basically that the women kept their families alive. And they did whatever they had to do to keep their families alive. And you see that time and time again with refugee populations. So that's my one moving moment. The second moving moment, which is actually quite personal to me in the American school, and we didn't mention it, is that the American women hospitals built 23 hospitals in Greece, 23 hospitals. So one of our trustees, not trustees, overseers, it actually lives in Connecticut, but he'll remain nameless, was born in the one in Cotignac. So his parents were refugees, they were illiterate, they were poor. I think his mother had 13 births. All these children, I think, died, except him, that was born in one of these American women's hospitals. And of course, he funded a large part of this exhibition because he wanted that story told. So I think that's the other story. And you,
Maria?
I think I will choose the Golden Rule Sunday. which was a way in which, it really shows how Americans, your regular American, helped. And this was a scheme, I guess, or a way to get money from Americans. So on Sunday, or one Sunday a month, you would give up your meal and you would eat what the kids ate in the orphanage. So you would sort of give back this money to the nearest relief. And I think, we have, I think it's pictured here, we have one of these sort of ways, it looks a little bit like a check, but it just shows how regular Americans, poured their love for these refugees and for people that they cared for, even if they didn't know them.
Let's give them a round of applause for tonight. I think it's really spectacular. And I'm gonna leave you with one final thought, because I got emotional before, but I don't know if how many of you seen Good Will Hunting, the movie? You seen it? So Good Will Hunting has one of the coolest, I think one of the greatest scenes. It's when they're on the park bench and they're sitting there, and it's Robin Williams and Matt Damon, and they're talking, and he's trying to get to his heart, and he's saying, if I ask you, about the Sistine Chapel, you're gonna tell me the dimensions, you're gonna tell me when it was painted. If I tell you, and he's going through all this stuff, and he says, but you can't tell me what it feels like. Exhibitions usually are supposed to be something where you come and you look back, right? It's what you do. But I hope you felt it tonight, because that's what this is really about. And this type of exhibition in particular is so powerful. Because I think it relates to us today. Andreas just spoke about the women, and the women for me were what's remarkable in here. And I've heard it from you guys, from doing this conversation so many times, where the men were depressed. Whoever survived, depressed. They couldn't move. They couldn't pick themselves up by their bootstraps. I've been there, And to be able for the women to stand up and just say, okay, do something. And the action of doing something and moving somebody, does that relate to people today? Does this exhibit stand on walls, or does it relate to us? Have you ever been with obstacles? Has your path, if it's been straight, all of a sudden went crooked? This is what the story is about. When you think about refugees or whatever, I don't know where your mind goes. Each of us have our own prejudice. You may think about a kid. You may think about, anyone in any different life stage. I have a tremendous gift that someone gave me when I left the priesthood years ago. They gave me a painting of this woman called The Immigrant. Where is it? And it hangs above my fireplace, and I love it because her face is so poignant. She's looking forward, but she is looking she's looking to a new country, a new world, but her age tells us she may never go back home. And that's the story, I think, for tonight. So with that, we want to thank you for coming, and we want you to know, I think the most important thing is if you have ever experienced that in your life, if you have changed the course, that I think what this story tells us, that together, that we are survivors. And why? Because it's in your DNA. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, the microphone's open in the middle. I'd love to hear from some of you. We'd love to hear, especially if you have relatives from Asia Minor as well. Who wants to go? Yeah. No, please. Please. Ella. Go ahead, Ella. Thank you. Someone's going to start off and just come in line. We'd love to have this. Wait, here, come closer.
This period is not only to people who are of Greek descent, but even more so to those who are not. If the exhibit travels, how are you going to publicize it? I'm thinking, as a public health practitioner, schools of public health, medical schools, universities, can you tell us what your plans are?
We're meeting Tuesday to evaluate your reactions to figure out how to do this. So to be honest with you, that's one of the, I believe that, I'll just speak my heart because, I believe this is the next exciting phase of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens. Because I've gotten to know these folks, and I've gotten to work with them, and the privilege to do that. And the one Achilles heel we have is that all our stuff is happening in Greece, and none of you, you know, if we get you, if you come there at the right time, at the right place, at the right moment, you'll see it. And if you get to meet these people that I get to sit with and talk to, so we have to figure a way to bring them to America, you know, to be able to do their work, but to, when they're here, we got them because they were in Princeton at a conversation, and Andreas has a board meeting this week. And Father Elias and the team here was kind of said, come. You know, so that's what we're navigating between. And then there's the cost, because the school runs a very tight ship, to be honest with you, a very tight ship. And what we need to do is we need to have the sponsorship program so that it doesn't take away from the other research that it's doing. I think it will come. I think, you know, you do the right thing and you tell the right story. And we're looking at different places, like the American Red Cross in DC as a possibility. We've talked to some people at Johns Hopkins that tell us, don't take it to local church, take it to the libraries, public libraries, you know, things of that nature, so that you get more eyes on it. I don't know what you all think, but I've been in the midst of all this stuff. We have Portland Museum, Sacramento Museum. They want it. It's not going to the Met, I don't think, but because you don't have you don't have stuff, you know. I mean, we do, but go ahead. What do you think?
No, I mean, you know, we're learning as we go along, because none of us have done this before. So, you know, and it's a challenge. But this in particular is a story that should be told. And yeah, so I hope this is a good start, and we'll see.
And we plan to present it, like, it's not going to be a one-night thing. It'll be somewhere for 6 weeks with 4 different lectures, 4 times, you know, this type of thing. So it's supposed to be an engaging process. Did you like it? I mean, honestly, did you find it? I mean, you know, go ahead. No, please, come to the row if you want. And we'd love to hear your feedback, because we're trying to grow this. We weren't going to play those films before, and then we saw you sitting down watching them. We'd love to hear what you know, got.
Thank you for this wonderful exhibit and presentation. Thank you very much. Concerning this fund drive, what role did the Holy Church, Orthodox Church, play in raising these funds?
In the last part of the exhibition, where we speak about Greek Americans and Ottoman Greeks, there were fundraisers, there were plays, I mean, the regular thing of fundraisers. And there were fundraisers from Greek Americans and fundraising drives by Ottoman Greeks. So we know that they were raising funds. I mean, we have a lot of information from the National Herald and other kinds of newspapers. And thankfully, so much of this is available online. So now you can find it. So it's, I think you can see it in one of the panels towards the end, where it says, you know, it's Christmas time and our brothers, τα αδέρφια μας, πεινάνε. You know, they need to be fed. So there were drives, but obviously, I mean, I imagine that the communities were not, you know, wealthy enough to give a lot.
And small.
And small, yes. Yeah. But also a lot of the money that was raised by the Greek American community in 1923-24 was sent to Greece, and it was actually used to build refugee housing in the area of Panathinaikos, the Koundouriotika, and the name is because the fund was being managed by Navarchos Koundouriotis, the Captain Koundouriotis. So there is a lot of information, but you have to be very careful to find it and then read about it more and contextualize it. But it's there.
I closed mine for the first time. I also want to, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted, because there was a lecture by someone from the Greek Parliament when we opened this exhibition, and he was very clear that the Americans saved hundreds of thousands of lives. I mean, it's that impactful what happened. Hundreds of thousands.
So I don't want to jump from that, but I want to just acknowledge, I talked about Andrew George's, but somebody asked me one time, so where did this start? So it's on the campus, it was on the campus in the Makrianis wing that we have these exhibitions. Elaine Allen was there, we have beautiful pictures of you. But I just want to say we're honored tonight because the main exhibition hall was named in honor of Costa Constantine and his sister. It's Stella and brother-in-law are here. Please stand for a second. Stella Phillips and Bill Phillips, they're here. And they just unveiled the beautiful exhibition hall in his honor. So we're grateful. Thank you for joining us. Any other questions? Comments? Oh, good. Asia Minor, here we go. No, please.
No, it's just a comment. I want to thank you for telling my dad's story, because he couldn't tell it. He was 3 years old, and somewhere there's an angel, because he lived through that. He lived through World War II, and he got here. And if he didn't get here, I'm not here. So thank you.
That's an interesting question. I want to hear from others in Asia. I'm going to say this. So my grandmother ripped up her pictures. So look at that. She became very bitter, and I heard my mom told me, very bitter, very angry, couldn't look at the smear in the photos, and just had such anger about the whole situation. Any other descendants from Asia Minor? Was it different? Please come and talk to us. I want to hear this because it's important for us to share, what the reactions were of these folks. I mean, that was that.
Oops,
No,
I'm sorry. Well, my parents, my father left in 1915, but my mother left in 1922. And my grandmother was sick, and there were 7 children. My mother was the only girl. They ranged from 17 to 3 years old. My grandfather carried my grandmother 100 miles from Philadelphia, which is Al-Ashayir, to Chesmet. And then they took the ship to Thiers, and my grandmother died in Thiers. So, and we don't have a picture of my grandmother, because my grandmother said to my grandfather, let's take some pictures. He said to her, I hope everybody understood me. Yeah. They're going to slaughter us, and you want to take some pictures? So we have no picture of my grandmother. We have my grandfather. And Tijeros, by accident, I have a copy of my grandmother's and my grandfather's wedding invitation. 1904, in September, they got married.
See, that's one of the things I think that this exhibit should have is local people putting this stuff forward. But I don't know how we manage these things, to be able to do that.
My father escaped from the Turkish army twice, and they were taking him to execute him. And he escaped again, and then went to Athens, and came to America in 1915. And he came actually on St. Patrick's Day. And the Greeks on the ship thought that they had the parade for them. But anyway.
No. My grandmother over there on the right was transported. No, she was they had to protect her on that journey from being raped, and they hid her. They told these stories. It was terrible.
Yeah, you're lucky that you have pictures.
Yeah,
I have some pictures, but not.
Thank you for sharing that. Very, very special. You made the night exceptional. You have the microphone stand. Alus, Ella, Pesto. I was leading you up. I was trying to get you to go.
Everyone, this was very special. So, similar story. On my father's side, from Sesmet, they went to Chios, and then from Chios, they went to Mytilene. On my mother's side, from Bodrum, they went to Kos. So, I got to know my great-grandfather, and in his late 80s, senility set in. So, I'm 18 years old, and I sang hi to my great-grandfather, and he says to me, with which fishing boat are you? Because they were all fishermen. And I would say, I'm your great-grandson from America. And I always remember this. He popped up his chest and he says, So I got a glimpse of the history through their loss of memory at that point. But you saw the pride. That's it.
Father's memories.